We are joined by a woman who needs no introduction.
But we're going to do a quick one anyway.
2022, Maura Healey was elected as the 73rd governor of the Commonwealth, becoming the first elected female governor of the state, as well as becoming only the third openly LGBT governor in our nation's history.
She is running for a second term this November, and hopefully we'll talk to her again before the campaign is over. But we welcome back to the Fabulous 413 our first guest from our first episode 3 years ago, Her Excellency, which is the actual honorific for governor in Massachusetts, Governor Maura Healey. Hello, Governor.
Hey, it's great to be with you. Great to be in the Fabulous 413.
And we're glad to have you here.
Yeah.
I don't think that I knew the honorific changed depending on the state.
I think it does state to state, but is it?
It does, I think,
Yeah.
state to state. And I think in all of our stuff, it was His Excellency.
Well,
Well,
right. So
and
now
yeah.
it's
they
Her
did make the
Excellency.
change.
And they, at the State of the Commonwealth, that is how they introduced you.
Right.
So I thought I would do that. And we are on the left half of the Commonwealth right now. So maybe this is the state of the left half of the Commonwealth. And a lot of press was attributed to the Western Mass office of the governor. So we'll start there and get that out of the way with the arrest of Lamar Cook for alleged cocaine trafficking and firearms charges. We're going to put the legal aspect of that aside. I think what people want to know is, what is the status of the Western Mass office of the governor, and is it functioning at the capacity that it should be to best serve the people of Western Mass?
Absolutely. From the beginning of my administration, I have had Kristen Alecko as director of the Western Mass office. She does a terrific job. She's all over the 413. And in addition to Kristen, we also have Western Mass representation across our secretariats, across the administration. I also created new positions that I think are particularly suited to Western Mass. The Rural Affairs Director, Ann Goby, out of the legislature, came over to help me with that. But you know, it's a strong office. Kristen's doing a great job. And, you know, it's really important to me. I campaigned for Attorney General first in Western Massachusetts. I think one of my first events was in Longmeadow and then in Northampton.
I remember
the hot chocolate run, maybe.
Interviewing you on a different station while running for Attorney General in Northampton at a radio station.
And so
there.
it's just, you know, I'm very partial to the 413. All of the counties, which are very different too, as you move from Northern Berkshire to Southern Berkshire to Hamden to Hampshire, Franklin, right? It's all different sensibilities, the different regions. I love the 413. And you know, I think Kim and I, the last 3 years, have shown a commitment there, making major investments in Western Massachusetts, working closely with the legislative delegation on things, and whether it's on housing or food security, funding for our rural schools, in addition to doubling the funding for public schools generally, you know, RTAs. That's been a big deal, you know, making RTAs free in the 413.
Regional transit authorities, and that's a big issue here. And a lot of money, a lot of people in Western Mass are always worried about their tax dollars and how they're spent on the MBTA, something that they may never use or very, very infrequently. Talk about what you've allocated in this new $62.8 billion budget when it comes to regional transit and how that can be improved in Western Mass.
Well, you know, you hit on regional equity. You know, it is so important that we be a state where our resources are spread across the state. And so that's why we've made a really concerted effort to invest and fund efforts in Western Mass. If you talk about transit, just transit alone, making RTAs free, that's important to people in the 413. The investments we've made in West East Rail. I mean, look at the improvements to Union Station in Springfield.
We can hear it all the time from our offices.
That's good.
It's right
Be careful
there.
what you wish for.
We can also feel it.
Yeah, sometimes the whole
Right?
building vibrates. Yeah.
But that's so important. The upgrades to Palmer Station, right? Making these changes is important. The investments that we've made in the municipal bridge program. And I've announced that I want an accelerated bridge program because, you know, so many times we see in Western Mass, we've got bridges that have been out of service for way too long, like years and years. I don't know why, but we got to take care of that, fix those. Think about the drive time that we would save people
Yeah.
from having to go around, you know, these circuitous routes because a bridge is out. So, you know, it's making those investments. It's making the investments in our community college and our other public colleges and universities in Western Massachusetts. We made community college free, which is really important because it's a great way to provide someone with economic mobility for them and their family. You know, all these are ways that I think are particularly important to Western Massachusetts. You know, when I think about the struggles right now that people across Massachusetts are dealing with, Americans are dealing with, high cost of housing, your gas and electric bills through the roof, and high cost of health care. You know, and I'm focused on that as governor every single day, which is why, or maybe we can talk more about that, but We're building 100,000 homes in the state. We're lowering gas and electric bills by bringing more energy supply into the region. And I recently gave discounts back to customers. And on healthcare, I got rid of copays and deductibles for people. I think I'm the first governor in Massachusetts to do that. We also got rid of prior authorizations to make it easier for people to access care. And just last month, I put about $250 million towards healthcare to keep people, 300,000 households who were going to lose their healthcare in Massachusetts because Trump let those ACA subsidies expire. Not going to happen on my watch. So, continuing to find ways to take care of and invest in people.
Speaking with Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey.
I want to go back to the education bit of this because education is one of the larger economic sectors of Massachusetts, I feel like. And that educational sector has come under fire under Trump, for sure, almost pointedly. And like some of the ways that Massachusetts has innovated to try and get more people, more education, are not getting the funding that or support that they were federally. How does Massachusetts move forward in that way to try and support this sector that is so large amongst the Commonwealth?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. What Donald Trump has done is so harmful to Massachusetts. It's harmful to states around the country, whether it's taking away food from people, taking away vaccines, taking away their health care.
Taking away Dunkin' Donuts?
Trying to take away Dunkin' Donuts. Not on my watch.
You made a statement about that.
From here, he should know better.
I know, RFK Jr. should know better than to
Oh
go
my
after
God!
Dunkin'.
Well, yeah, he needs to focus on measles, and taking away measles, actually, and not our coffee. But it's a great point you make. When Trump defunds funding for science and for research, that hurts our public institutions here in Massachusetts. 1 in 10 research and development jobs in the country are in Massachusetts. By the way, they're statewide. And so what I've tried to do is, first off, let's shore up our early ed and our K-12 education funding. We've been able to do that. As I say, under my watch, we have doubled state funding for public education in the state. We've made things like early college available. We've expanded vocational training and career technical training for our high school students. And, that's so important. We need to continue to do that. And we're going to continue to make community college free. But with him taking away the funding and coming after and attacking our colleges and universities, I've said, no, we can't let that happen. I proposed that the legislature provide funding to cover postgrads and doctoral students who are working right now in universities, including University of Massachusetts, Amherst, who are doing incredibly important work, whether it's in the field of life sciences or in climate technology or in other areas. Like, we have got to shore that up. These are jobs, and they're also, part of who we are as a state. We're a state of innovation. We've been a state of creating things from the very beginning. Democracy 250 years ago here in this country, right?
Sounded like a good idea at the time. I don't know how it's going 250 years later.
We're Massachusetts, and I'm really proud to be governor of this state where we actually respect the Constitution, the rule of law, people's rights, individual liberties and freedoms. We're having to fight back terrible federal administration, but we're not going to change who we are in Massachusetts.
And to that end, your office today just released a press release saying that you are demanding transparency from ICE on arrests in Massachusetts. ICE's own data shows the majority of those arrested in Massachusetts have no criminal record. There was a news story earlier this week about a Haitian man who had been living in Massachusetts that was in an ICE detention facility in Arizona who died from an infected tooth. Talk about how your administration is pushing back on ICE in Massachusetts. And I know, as you mentioned in the State of the Commonwealth, keeping citizens here safe from ICE.
ICE is a threat to public safety. We've seen ICE, act here in Massachusetts and in other places, whether they're shooting and killing U.S. citizens or picking up and detaining people who are here lawfully, including U.S. citizens, picking up kids as young as 2 months old. 5 years old, crazy, right? And engaging in all sorts of violations of the law and Constitution, attacking people who are exercising their First Amendment right to record a federal agent and take video. It's so wrong. And that's why I acted as governor. I banned ICE from hospitals, daycare centers, schools, houses of worship, courthouses. Why? Because too many people were afraid to take their kids to school or to go to work or to report a crime or to, go to a doctor's appointment. that is not making us safe. And I mean, we looked at the data, right? They said they were going to come after the worst of the worst. They did an initial surge here. And I said, look, I was your former attorney general, right?
Right.
A prosecutor. I know what it is to go after real bad guys, right? That's not what they've been doing. I mean, we have seen so many instances of people who have been picked up and taken away, families separated, kids, who've lost a mother or father, breadwinner gone from their family because, most all these people are working, paying taxes, contributing to our community, and contributing to the economy. And it sickens me. I want an accounting. So in addition to banning ICE from those places, I've also said no state resources, no state assets can be used by ICE. I've also said no other governor can send a National Guard into Massachusetts. And, we're going to continue to support our immigrant organizations and families who are, faced with this terrible situation. And, it just, the other day I asked I want an accounting. We don't know. They haven't told us who's been taken from our state, and for what reason.
And to where they may be taken.
And to where they may be taken. And, we don't know how many kids have been taken. We've got people right now who are, going to really fall probably into the care of the state because they've lost their parents, right? This is just so wrong. So, we're going to continue to push back on this. But ICE right now is really a public safety threat here and around the country.
Speaking with Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey, we have a listener question.
We do. I'm just going to read it right out. Elizabeth writes, I'm curious about the Sunday blue laws and wonder if there will ever be a change that says businesses can actually schedule people on Sundays to work, specifically retailers. It's super challenging now that the incentive of time and a half or 1.1 time has been exchanged for the 15 an hour minimum wage to get people to work on Sundays. And her understanding is that the law says if an employee says they don't want to work on Sundays, they can't schedule them to work. Sunday is a big shopping day, so it continues to be challenging.
Yeah. It's a great question. And it's also like the modern day, right? Like we're an old state. We've got laws that have been on the books hundreds of years sometimes. And it's like we got to catch up with the modern times. It's funny, Massachusetts, we're number one in education, number one in innovation, right? We've also been around a long time, so we have some laws on the books that just don't make sense for today's world, today's economy. We certainly need to support our small businesses. Right now, small businesses are the lifeblood of our communities. And so, ways that we can make it easier for our small businesses. And frankly, just people generally. I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, life's sort of 24/7, right? One day bleeds into the next.
Tell us about
the weekday, the weekend. It's not
I
even
barely know that it's
not
Friday.
even distinguishable. So we got to modernize our laws.
Speaking with Governor Maura Healey, another listener question. Wes Bowser writes, would you please ask Governor Healey how she can support school districts now buckling under health insurance costs and Trump's inflationary disaster of an economy?
Yeah, great question. Such a disaster when Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress cut $1 trillion from health care. That was that one big bad bill this summer. They took $1 trillion out of health care. So what I've done is I recently put $250 million more into health care in our state so that people who had ACA subsidies could continue their health care. We are working hard to support what is a broken healthcare system in America. It's just too hard for people. And that's why I recently established this working group, bringing together providers, your hospitals, your community health centers, insurers, and employers to say, let's figure out a new way. 20 years ago, Massachusetts pioneered universal health care. It was the precursor to the ACA. And it's time for Massachusetts to innovate once again. I've done what I could around getting rid of copays and deductibles. But, we really need to look at new ways to make sure that people can afford health care in Massachusetts and can access health care. I'm also trying to grow the number of primary care providers and mental health providers. If we could have more primary care and easier access to a primary care appointment, if we could have easier access to a mental health therapist, that would take care of a lot of problems, right? Or head off a lot of problems. And so, we've got to grow those ranks, and we've got to drive the cost down. It came up recently for public employees on something called the GIC, their insurance plan, and I learned that GIC was going to be passing on some of the costs to workers, public workers, and they just can't afford more right now in their bills, in their premiums. I mean, double-digit increases, and again, a lot of this has been terribly exacerbated by what Donald Trump did and what Congress did this summer.
And then on the other side, you have concierge service, like increasing costs that way too.
Right.
So it's coming from both ends.
Yep.
I think we have to let the governor go, unfortunately.
Oh,
That means I can't ask her how how the Hunger Task Force went with Monte doing some of the moderating.
I did moderate the listening sessions for the Hunger Task Force, which was an honor and a privilege, and I learned an awful lot about hunger in the Commonwealth, going all over the Commonwealth to these listening sessions.
Monte, I just want to thank you for your leadership and your leadership on the task force. It broke my heart, when Donald Trump cut SNAP benefits this fall, and I just saw people rally. We came out, we did the march.
Yes, you did.
It was with you and Jim McGovern, and it's a great commitment that you do every year. We really saw the importance of our food pantries, of our farmers, too. It's why in my budget, I proposed that our local farms get a tax credit. I mean, they're part of our food security network. They're part of our economy. We've got to help our farmers.
That came up many times in the listening sessions.
Well, and I know that you have been working on recommendations. They'll be to my desk shortly. I look forward to implementing those, right? So that we can continue to fight off hunger in the state. Nobody should go hungry in Massachusetts.
Two best recommendations that I'll give you very quickly. One
Please.
is make sure DTA is well funded because of the quote big beautiful bill. That is going to be Department of Transitional Assistance is who delegates who's going to get what and is the administrative service by which SNAP comes to Massachusetts. And also, let's make hunger or food a right in the Constitution. We're a right to shelter state. What if access to food, which human beings need to live, was part of the Massachusetts Constitution? I was so inspired by hearing those ideas from the task force.
Good ideas.
Governor Healey, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for coming to Springfield. I know you're with the Regional Chamber of Commerce there today. And thanks for being our first guest and our current guest on the show.
Well, I hope I can come back sometime.
We're going to have you on
It flew
and your
by.
challengers for governor because
All
I got
right.
some more questions that are campaign oriented. We'll boot them down the road.
All right, terrific.
But thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks to you both.